Alright, we're going to go ahead and do a project here on a TJ Jeep. We're going to change out the control arms. We have purchased the metal cloak control arms for the TJ. And looks like that's the part number there. Going to take you through the process of what we're doing here to get the job done. So we're starting out recording the angles of a few different areas on the axle and the drive shaft. This is the pinion angle because we're connected to the drive shaft. And then we're measuring the caster angle from over here. And that measures the part that's actually connected to the drive shaft. And this is around a 7 or 8 degrees. And so is this. Okay, this is the driver's side axle measurement, and we're looking like at a 4.5, somewhere between 4 and 5. So we're trying, factory is a 7. So when we're done with this job, we want to get as close to 7 as we can. The reason why it's a 7 is because when your suspension lifts out, it flexes back towards 0 as your suspension extends. And then sometimes even goes beyond that to a little bit below 0. So apparently 7 is where they want you to end up. So that's our goal. We probably won't make it to a 7 just because of the lift we have on this vehicle, but that's our goal. Okay, now we're measuring the other side, and oddly enough, this is a lot different than that side. So I wasn't expecting that. This is closer to an 8. So negative 8 degrees on this side, which is odd. So see what happens with that. So this measurement, we're not really sure how critical it is, but the right to left angle and how level the vehicle sits right to left, pretty close to 0. That's what we would expect. So when we put it all back together, we just taken this measurement just so we can see that the vehicle goes kind of back to this same state. We've removed the bolts. They are both 21 millimeter bolts, and you're going to need a deep socket for one side of it. You might want to make sure you remove it from the nut side, because if you have one of these caster correcting bolts that some Jeeps have, be difficult to remove from the other side. So that's one thing to remember. So as you can see here, the new control arm is slightly larger and adjustable. So what was the original measurement?
15 3/4.
15 3/4, and we're going to be moving towards somewhere in the
16.5, 16 3/8.
Yeah, 16.5 3/8 size. But obviously, we have to adjust that once it gets on there to make sure we're where we want it to be. All right, so part of this, we're going to start with making sure both sides are the same length, and you loosen the jam nut. Spin the head, and then when you get it to the distance you want, tighten the nut back down. It's pretty simple. Here's where we're at with this. We've put this bolt in at the top because the way this frame piece is, you can't drop that part in and out easily. So we're gonna go ahead and put that piece in, and then once we get it all apart and we do the measurement, we'll just keep putting this in, dropping it, putting it in, drop it, turn, make the adjustments, but this bolt will stay in the whole time. So that way we're not having to move a bolt in and out all the time. That's the plan. Okay, we figured out that the passenger side, the reason why the angle is a little different was because this side, this bolt, this special caster adjusting bolt, was under some tension. So it was actually changing that angle on the side. As soon as we loosen this bolt, that angle, we saw the whole axle rotate just a couple degrees. So that's why we were seeing the difference before. So keep that in mind when if you have these bolts, you're gonna have to know what changes these bolts have made so that when you go back, it's not affecting anything. Okay, here's the crazy contraption that we've demised to get this axle to move forward.
It's probably not OSHA approved.
Yeah, this is probably not OSHA approved, but basically we just took a piece of pipe. You could use the 2x4. We didn't have one laying around, surprisingly enough. And a jack, bottle jack would work good too. And basically we're pushing on the skid plate, pushing the axle forward, and it's slowly inching forward. So, so far it's moved maybe 1/4 of an inch, and we're going to go ahead and go through the motions here and push this axle forward. This is the best thing we can come up with. Put in the comments if you had a better idea. Nice to get on video, but this jack did eventually pop. So you might want to come up with a safer method to pushing that axle out. But something with a jack pushing outwards worked nicely. You just got to get it to where the jack is not going to pop loose. To make this jack pushing less dangerous. So we have a jack under here that keeps that pipe from popping out that way. It's on the lower end of the axle, so if it wants, it's trying to push down, but the jack is in holding its place. And this side, similarly, we have a board that's below it, so it can't pop out this way. So the only really thing we have, the problem is to worry about left to right, it popping out left to right. It's working okay. Angle and how this works. Go ahead. We're slowly moving it. It's hard to get a good perspective, but it's slowly inching forward.
Yeah.
We almost got it there. You have these caster adjusting bolts. When you first put the bolt in, you're going to want it to line up perfectly flat. See if I can get a better view of that. As you can see, we're not flat. The flat part of this bolt, we want to go straight up and down. So you have to manipulate your axle forward or backward, whatever direction you need to get it to go, so that bolt lines up where you're in a neutral position. So it just takes a little bit of adjustment. Not that big a deal. You're better off starting where you're too short and then work your way out. Okay, so here's where we're starting to measure, see if we got this axle square, and we're just pushing this measuring tape up against the axle, the back edge of the axle, so you can see like that. And then we're using this piece of the frame where the body mounts onto it, and we're comparing the two sides. We're not 100% sure if these brackets are in the same place on both sides. We measured them beforehand, and it seemed like they were, so that's what we're going with. What's your measurement?
26 1/4.
So we're at 26 1/4 with this vehicle.
On both sides.
Okay, so we've done some measurements, and from what we can tell, it's square. We put these originally from center to center. It was 16 and a half inches center to center on these posts is what we started with. And when we pushed out the axle, we pushed the axle out straight through the middle, so the whole axle would move evenly, and then put it back in. It stayed square. The vehicle was square to begin with, I guess, so it helped, and it pushed out, and it's still square. Put these on. Before we put them on, it was a 16 and a half of an inch, so 16.5 inches from center to center. If you need to rotate yours, it's roughly 0.081 inches every rotation. So 360 degree rotation of that knuckle is 0.081 inches. So if you do 10 rotations, it comes out to be 11/16 of an inch. Or, I'm sorry, 13/16 of an inch after 10 rotations. So we're going to go ahead and tighten down, and going to do the top next. Okay, so the passenger side control arm, we were trying to cut do the first bolt first. There was so much tension on there. These stupid little clips that never work when they come off just break away. We end up having to cut it. We learned on the other side, if you just take the back bolt out first, then you can just use your regular air tool and a clamp on this, and typically it'll come off. I mean, it still might not have come off because if the bolt's all stripped, threaded or something. But anyway, so just so you know what you're up against, this bolt's hard to get out. Make it easier on yourself. Take out the back one first. When you take out the back bolt, that's when the axle rolls, and in this case, it rolled forward. So you're going to want to put something on the front side of the axle to keep it from rotating too far. I'm going to show you. Hold on. So what we're doing, ignore that right there. That's what we use to get off that stupid bolt that doesn't work. We're using this jack and a block of wood to prop up this front axle, and the post for your suspension actually provides the correct extension out this way towards the front to rotate the axle. So we've only rotated about 1 degree back since it moved, and we're going to go ahead and jack this up and watch our measurement tool. I'm going to watch this measurement tool slowly move past the 0 into the positive again. And we're going to be moving into the around 5 degrees in the positive. So by using that jack over there, that's what's going to do it for us. That's how we're doing it. I don't know if it's the right way or not. Okay, as you can see, we've got this partially jacked up, and we're close to where we want to be. Originally, we had this on there, and it was 7.5 degrees. So now we're pretty close to that. So we're gonna do some more adjustment back and forth and try and get this to be exactly the position that we want it to be. Alright, so the jack only got us so far. Could only get it to about 5. So what we're using is the ratchet strap pulling from the axle this way, and this will work. Okay, as you can see, we cranked it back using the ratchet strap. Can you touch that rope there?
Rope?
That's how tight it is.
Oh, this thing's, it's slack lined.
Very tight.
As in the thing you stand on.
And as you can see there, we're like -9 degrees at the moment. Alright, we went ahead and measured from the axle to the front of this post, and we had 26 1/4 to start, and when we finished we had 26 1/2. So in effect we moved the axle forward 1/2 inch, and that was another goal here, was to move the axle forward. So and it's square. We measured both sides. They're both 26 1/2 now, and they were 26 1/4 before, so it's square. Okay, on this side it went up closer to 10, which is about 2.5 higher than it was originally, and that's what we were shooting for. We were trying to move it after doing these control arms to get it to change a little bit. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and put the front part of this control arm first, but he's already replaced the bushings once in this vehicle. But if you haven't replaced the bushings, now's the time. You definitely want to do that in this part right here. And they're kind of hard, and I'm not going to cover it in this video, but now's the time to replace bushings here if you're going to do it. These are the only bushings that would need to be replaced with these particular control arms, because all the other ones are included with the control arm. Alright, so they went up actually really easy. We had to use a little bit of a mallet to tap this down onto here. Bolt goes in. We don't have it tightened down yet, because once we put that bolt on, once that one was on, this is still loose. That's still loose. And we actually had to adjust this side. You can see it. This comes down, and we had to spin it one time. Only had to turn one more rotation to make it just a little bit longer. It slid up into place. The bolt went straight in without any problem. And that's the way you're supposed to do it. You should never have to force this in. You should just adjust this control arm until the pins go in by, nice and easy, gently. So that's where you want it to be. So the next step is we got to tighten all this stuff down. By the way, this is a 15 millimeter. Both of these, all of these are 15 millimeter on this. Just to let you know. So 21 on the bottom, 15 on the top. Okay, out of the manual, we're going to look at our torque numbers. And looks like here we have upper control arms are at 55. The axle bracket nut is 85, and the frame bracket nut is 130. So there's your torque number, so you don't have to look it up. Alright, we're all set, torqued up. What we're going to do is take our strap off there. So those are the new control arms. Not too bad. Front done. Remember is the tighten your jam nuts down. I'm just using like a pipe wrench. We don't have a regular wrench that's that large. Alright, we've done all our measurements again, the same place. We've seen a 4° on both sides of the front axle. And the drive shaft, instead of the pinion and drive shaft being the same angle, now we have a slight difference between the drive shaft and the pinion by 4°. And this is ultimately what we were trying to do with these control arms, was to change this rotation of the axle and move it out some. Alright, we went ahead and measured from the axle to the front of this post, and we had 26 1/4 to start, and when we finished we had 26 1/2. So in effect we moved the axle forward a 1/2 inch, and that was another goal here, was to move the axle forward. So and it's square. We measured both sides. They're both 26 1/2 now, and they were 26 1/4 before, so it's square.